On a warm summer evening, beneath the vast canopy of twinkling stars, a young shepherd sat by his campfire, listening to the whispers of the wind. The flames flickered and danced, casting shadows that seemed to tell ancient tales. The shepherd, with wide eyes and a heart full of wonder, felt a pull toward stories of old, the ones that spoke of gods and legends long before his time. These stories, he knew, were not just tales. They were the threads that wove the fabric of his people's history, their beliefs, and their understanding of the world around them. They spoke of a time when gods walked among men, when the heavens and the earth were one, and every star in the sky had a story to tell. In the beginning, there was chaos, a vast expanse of nothingness. From this void emerged the first gods, beings of unimaginable power and mystery. These ancient deities were the foundation of biblical mythology, the pillars upon which the world was built. They were not just figures of worship, they were the embodiment of the forces of nature, the mysteries of life and death, and the essence of existence itself. One such god was Yahweh, known to many as the supreme God of Israel. But Yahweh was not always seen as the all-powerful, singular deity. In the earliest days, he was one among many, a god of the storms and the mountains, a fierce protector and a relentless warrior. His followers believed that Yahweh could bring rain to their parched lands, defeat their enemies, and lead them to victory. As time passed, Yahweh's role grew, and he became the central figure in the lives of his people, a symbol of hope, strength, and unwavering faith. Then there was El, an ancient Canaanite deity, whose name meant God or Mighty One. El was the father of gods and men, a wise and benevolent ruler who dwelled in the high places of the earth. He was often depicted with a long beard and a staff, a symbol of his authority and wisdom. El was not a distant god, he was a caring father, a protector of the weak, and a guide for the lost. Many of his attributes were later absorbed into the identity of Yahweh, blending the lines between the old and the new. Beside El stood Ashira, the mother goddess, the one who brought life and fertility to the land. Ashira was often represented by a tree, a symbol of growth, sustenance, and connection to the earth. Her worshippers believed that she was the source of all life, the nurturing force that ensured the continuation of their people. In the early days of Israelite religion, Ashera was venerated alongside Yahweh, her presence a reminder of the balance between male and female, creation and destruction, life and death. But as time went on, the worship of Ashera diminished. Her images were torn down, her groves destroyed, and her name forgotten. The reasons for this are many and complex, tied to shifts in political power, religious reforms, and the evolving nature of the Israelites' understanding of their God. Yet, her memory lingered, a whisper in the wind, a shadow in the firelight, a reminder of a time when the divine feminine was honored and revered. Baal, the storm god, was another figure of great importance. He was a god of rain and fertility, a bringer of life and abundance. His followers called upon him to end droughts, to ensure bountiful harvests, and to protect them from the chaos of nature. But Baal was also a god of war, a mighty warrior who fought against the forces of darkness. His battles with Yahweh are legendary, tales of conflict and competition that shaped the religious landscape of the ancient Near East. Anath, the warrior goddess, was Baal's sister and fierce ally. She was a goddess of love and war, embodying both the nurturing and destructive aspects of the divine. Anath was known for her courage and strength, her unyielding determination to protect her people. Her stories are filled with battles and victories, acts of bravery and sacrifice that inspired and awed those who heard them. Dagon, the grain god, held a different kind of power. He was the god of agriculture, the provider of sustenance and life. His followers believed that without Dagon, their fields would wither, their crops fail, and their people starve. He was a god of plenty, a symbol of the earth's bounty and the cycles of nature. Moloch, on the other hand, was a god of sacrifice. His worship was marked by rituals that involved offerings, sometimes even human. Moloch was a god of fire and destruction, a figure of fear and reverence. The stories of his demands and the consequences of failing to meet them are harrowing and dark, a reminder of the lengths to which people would go to appease the divine. Chemosh, the Moabite god, and Milcom, the Ammonite deity, were gods of their respective peoples, each with their own stories and significance. Chemosh was known for his fierce protection of the Moabites, while Milcom was the guardian of the Ammonites. Their tales are intertwined with the history of their nations, their worship a testament to the enduring power of faith and devotion. Astarte, the goddess of fertility, was another figure of great importance. She was a goddess of love, beauty, and fertility, her presence a symbol of life's potential and the promise of renewal. Astarte was worshipped in many forms and names, her influence spreading far and wide across the ancient world. Resheph, the god of plague, was a figure of fear and respect. He was associated with illness and death, his presence a reminder of the fragility of life. Yet, he was also a god who could protect and heal, his power a double-edged sword that could bring both destruction and salvation. Nergal, the god of the underworld, held dominion over the dead. He was a god of darkness and decay, his realm a place of shadow and silence. Nergal's stories are filled with the mysteries of life after death, the journey of the soul, and the eternal struggle between light and dark. Hadad, the weather god, and Shamash, the sun god, were gods of natural forces. Hadad controlled the storms and rain, while Shamash brought light and warmth to the world. Their stories are ones of balance and harmony, of the interplay between the elements and the forces that shape the earth. Sin, the moon god, was a figure of mystery and magic. His light guided travelers through the night, his presence a symbol of the passage of time and the cycles of nature. Tammuz, the dying and rising god, represented the cycles of life and death, his story one of loss and rebirth, sorrow and hope. Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, ruled over the realm of the dead with an iron hand. She was a goddess of power and authority, her stories filled with the trials and tribulations of those who entered her domain. Anu, the sky god, and Enlil, the god of wind, were gods of the heavens, their power vast and their influence far-reaching. Enki, the god of wisdom, was a figure of knowledge and insight. His stories are ones of creation and invention, of the gifts of intellect and understanding. The divine assembly, the council of gods, was a gathering of these powerful beings, their decisions shaping the fate of the world and the lives of those who worshipped them. These gods, with their diverse attributes and stories, formed the foundation of biblical mythology. They were the forces that shaped the ancient world, the beings who held the power of life and death in their hands. Their tales, filled with wonder and awe, are the heart of our heritage, the essence of our ancestors' beliefs and dreams. The gods may be old, but their stories continue to resonate, echoing through the ages, a reminder of the enduring power of faith and the human spirit. The night was calm, with the moon casting a gentle glow over the ancient city. Children gathered around an old storyteller, their eyes wide with anticipation. The air was thick with the scent of the desert and the echoes of 1,000 years. The storyteller, with a voice both gentle and commanding, began to weave a tale that would transport his audience to the heart of ancient Near Eastern cultures. In those ancient lands, the concept of God was as vast and varied as the desert sands. The gods of the Near East were more than distant beings, they were woven into the very fabric of daily life. They were powerful, mysterious, and ever-present, guiding the people through the challenges and triumphs of existence. These deities shared common characteristics that made them relatable yet awe-inspiring. They possessed human traits and emotions, yet their powers far surpassed those of mere mortals. They loved, hated, rejoiced, and mourned, just like the people who worshipped them. Yet, they controlled the forces of nature and the fate of humanity. One could feel their presence in the roar of a thunderstorm, the rush of a river, or the gentle breeze of the evening. In the city of Uruk, there was Anu, the sky god, who ruled over the heavens. His eyes were said to be the stars, watching over the world with a gaze both kind and stern. The people looked up to him, finding solace in his vastness and wisdom. Then there was Enlil, the god of wind and storms. His temper was as unpredictable as the weather, but his power was undeniable. When the winds howled and the rains poured, the people prayed to Enlil, hoping to appease his wrath. Across the land, in the city of Eridu, Enki, the god of water and wisdom, held sway. Enki was a creator and a guide, his laughter bubbling in the streams and his knowledge deep as the ocean. He was the one who taught humanity the secrets of civilization, bringing them out of chaos and into the light of understanding. These gods were part of a larger pantheon, each with their own domain and story, yet interconnected in a divine web of relationships. They argued, collaborated, and sometimes even conspired against each other, much like the people who told their tales. This intricate tapestry of deities reflected the complexity of life itself. When compared to other ancient mythologies, the gods of the Near East stood out for their rich narratives and profound impact on their followers. In Egypt, for example, gods like Ra, the sun god, and Osiris, the god of the afterlife, were equally powerful and revered. Ra sailed across the sky in his solar boat, bringing light and life to the world, while Osiris ruled over the dead, offering hope of resurrection and eternal life. The Egyptian gods were majestic and eternal, embodying the order and stability that defined their civilization. In Greece, the gods of Mount Olympus were known for their passionate and often tumultuous relationships. Zeus, the king of the gods, wielded lightning bolts and governed the heavens, while his wife Hera watched over marriage and family. The Greek gods, with their dramatic stories and vibrant personalities, were both loved and feared, their tales echoing the human experience in all its glory and tragedy. The gods of the Near East, however, had a unique influence on the biblical traditions that would shape the future of many cultures. The stories of these ancient deities found their way into the sacred texts of the Israelites, blending and transforming into the narratives that have been passed down through generations. Yahweh, the God of Israel, bore similarities to these ancient gods, but also stood apart. Like Enlil, Yahweh was a god of storms and power, capable of shaking the earth with his presence. Yet, he was also a god of compassion and justice, guiding his people with a firm yet loving hand. The concept of a single, all-powerful deity was a significant shift from the polytheistic traditions of the Near East, yet it retained the depth and complexity of its predecessors. The influence of gods like El and Ashira can be seen in the early worship practices of the Israelites. El, the ancient Canaanite god, was a figure of wisdom and authority, much like the Yahweh who would later emerge as the central figure of monotheism. Ashira, the mother goddess, was a symbol of fertility and life, her presence lingering in the shadows of biblical narratives despite efforts to erase her from history. Even the rituals and symbols associated with these ancient gods found echoes in biblical traditions. The sacrifices offered to Yahweh bore resemblance to those given to Baal and Moloch, while the sacred groves and high places of worship mirrored the sanctuaries of Ashira and El. These connections created a rich tapestry of belief and practice, one that wove together the old and the new, the known and the unknown. As the storyteller's voice rose and fell with the rhythm of the tale, the children felt the weight of these ancient truths. They could see the gods in their minds, towering and majestic, yet close enough to touch. They could feel the winds of Enlil, taste the waters of Enki, and see the stars of Anu shining down upon them. These gods were not distant memories, but living parts of their heritage, their stories a bridge between the past and the present. The concept of God in the ancient Near East was not just about power and reverence, it was about connection and understanding. It was about finding one's place in the vast tapestry of existence, recognizing the divine in the everyday, and honoring the mysteries that lay beyond the horizon. Through these stories, the people found meaning, comfort, and a sense of belonging in a world that was both wondrous and daunting. As the fire crackled and the night grew darker, the storyteller's tale came to a close, but the echoes of the gods' voices remained. The children, now drowsy but enchanted, carried the stories with them, their hearts and minds filled with the ancient wisdom of their ancestors. The gods of the Near East, with all their power and mystery, continued to live on in the hearts of those who remembered and believed. Under the vast expanse of a starlit sky, a group of nomads gathered around a fire, the flames dancing and casting flickering shadows. Among them sat an old man, his face etched with the lines of many years and countless stories. The children nestled closer, eager for the tales that always left their hearts racing and their imaginations alight. The old man began, his voice a low, melodic murmur that seemed to blend with the crackling of the fire. In the beginning, he started, before the world was as we know it, there was a God named Yahweh. His name meant he who causes to exist, and his presence was felt in the wind, the storm, and the silence of the desert nights. The children leaned in, their eyes wide and their breaths held. They could almost feel the ancient winds that once whispered Yahweh's name across the barren lands. Yahweh was not always the supreme God of Israel. His origins were humble, his worship beginning among a small, wandering people who moved with the seasons and followed the stars. Yahweh was first known as a god of storms and battles, a fierce warrior who protected his people from their enemies. His followers believed that he rode upon the clouds, his voice like thunder, his breath like the roaring wind. When they called upon him, Yahweh would answer with flashes of lightning and the rumble of the earth. The nomads saw his power in the sudden downpour that revived their parched throats and in the victory cries that echoed across the valleys after a triumphant battle. As the old man's tale unfolded, the children could almost hear the distant thunder, feel the ground tremble beneath their feet. Yahweh's presence was palpable, a force of nature that both terrified and comforted. He was not just a god to be worshipped, he was a protector, a leader, a guiding force in the vast, unpredictable world. As time passed, the stories of Yahweh spread. His name traveled with the nomads as they settled and grew into a nation. His identity began to evolve, shaped by the experiences and needs of his people. No longer just a god of storms and battles, Yahweh became a god of covenant and law. He was the God who made promises, who demanded loyalty, and who provided guidance through the trials of life. One of the children, eyes wide with wonder, whispered, "What promises did Yahweh make?" The old man smiled gently, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames. Yahweh promised to be with his people, to lead them to a land of their own, flowing with milk and honey. He promised to make them a great nation, if they would follow his laws and keep his covenant. And in return, his people promised to worship only him, to honor his name, and to live by his commandments. The children nodded, feeling the weight of these promises, the gravity of such a powerful bond between a God and his people. Yahweh's identity grew even more complex as he became not just a God of power, but a God of justice and mercy. He was the one who delivered his people from slavery in Egypt, who parted the Red Sea, who guided them through the wilderness with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. The old man's voice grew softer, more solemn. In the wilderness, Yahweh revealed his laws to his people. On Mount Sinai, amidst thunder and lightning, he gave them the 10 Commandments. These laws were not just rules, they were a testament to Yahweh's desire for his people to live righteous, just, and compassionate lives. Through these laws, Yahweh taught his people how to be holy, as he is holy. The children listened intently, feeling the weight of these divine laws. They could almost see Moses standing on the mountain, his face radiant with the glory of Yahweh, holding the stone tablets that bore the words of the living God. Yahweh was shaping his people, setting them apart, making them a light to the nations. As the old man spoke, the children could feel the presence of Yahweh in the stories of the Old Testament. They felt his power in the creation of the world, his justice in the flood that cleansed the earth, his mercy in the rainbow that promised never again. They saw his hand guiding Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, leading Joseph through dreams and pharaohs, calling Moses from a burning bush. Yahweh was not just a God of the past, the old man continued. He was ever present, guiding his people through kings and prophets, through exile and return. He was the voice that called Samuel in the night, the strength that empowered David to face Goliath, the wisdom that inspired Solomon's Proverbs. Through every victory and defeat, every joy and sorrow, Yahweh remained faithful to his people, shaping their destiny and weaving their stories into the great tapestry of his divine plan. The children could feel the pulse of history, the heartbeat of a nation bound to their God. Yahweh's role and significance in the Old Testament were not just as a distant deity, but as an intimate, ever-present force in the lives of his people. He was their hope in times of despair, their strength in moments of weakness, their light in the darkest nights. As the fire began to die down, the old man's voice grew softer, almost a whisper. "Remember," he said, "Yahweh is not just a God of the past. He is the God of the present, the God of the future. His love, his justice, his mercy, They are as real today as they were in the days of Abraham and Moses, of David and Solomon. He is the God who walks with us, who guides us, who calls us to be his own. The children, with hearts full of awe and wonder, nodded solemnly. They knew that the story of Yahweh was not just a tale to be told around a campfire, but a living truth that shaped their lives and their world. As they drifted off to sleep, the stars above seemed to whisper the name of Yahweh, the supreme God of Israel, the one who causes to exist, the one who was, and is, and ever shall be. The village elders sat on a stone, the warmth of the setting sun casting long shadows across the gathering. His voice, both strong and gentle, called the children and adults alike to listen. He began with a name that echoed through the valleys and mountains of ancient Canaan, El, the father of gods and men, the wise and ancient deity who once held the hearts of a people. Long ago, in a land where the earth met the sky in a perfect embrace, El was revered as the highest god of the Canaanites. His name meant strong or mighty, and his presence was felt in the high places where the people built their altars. El was often depicted as a kindly old man with a long beard, a symbol of wisdom and authority. He was the creator, the one who fashioned the heavens and the earth, the giver of life and the protector of the universe. The elder paused, his eyes reflecting the glow of the fire. El was not a distant god, he said softly. He was a father, a guide, a compassionate ruler who cared deeply for his children. He lived among the stars, but his heart was with the people who called out to him in their times of need. The people of Canaan believed that El lived in a tent by the source of two rivers, a place of abundance and peace. He was married to Ashira, the mother goddess, and together they presided over a pantheon of lesser gods and goddesses. Their children included Baal, the storm god, and Anath, the fierce goddess of war. Each deity had a role to play in the cosmos, and El, as the supreme god, maintained harmony and order among them. As the elder spoke, the listeners could almost see El, a majestic figure standing tall against the backdrop of the cosmos, his eyes filled with ancient wisdom. They felt a connection to this god who was both powerful and gentle, distant yet near. With time, the tribes of Israel settled in the land of Canaan. They encountered the worshippers of El and saw the similarities between their own God, Yahweh, and the great Canaanite deity. At first, there was confusion and tension as the people struggled to reconcile the two figures. But gradually, the identity of El began to merge with that of Yahweh, creating a seamless tapestry of faith and devotion. El and Yahweh, the elder continued, became one in the hearts and minds of the people. They saw in Yahweh the strength and wisdom of El, the compassion of a father and the power of a creator. The old ways were not forgotten, they were transformed, given new life in the worship of Yahweh. The stories of El and Yahweh began to intertwine. El's wisdom and authority were attributed to Yahweh, while Yahweh's fierce protection and guidance echoed the qualities of El. The Israelites saw their God not only as a mighty warrior, but also as a wise ruler, a loving father, and a creator who cared for the world and its inhabitants. Even as the Israelites grew and changed, the elders said, they carried with them the legacy of El. His name was whispered in their prayers, his attributes reflected in their worship of Yahweh. The two became one, and in this union, the people found strength, hope, and a deeper understanding of the divine. The relationship between El and Yahweh was not without its complexities. There were times when the old ways clashed with the new, when the people struggled to let go of the familiar and embrace the emerging identity of their God. But through it all, the essence of El remained, a silent thread woven into the fabric of their faith. El's wisdom and compassion, the elder said, his voice filled with emotion, are still with us today. When we look to the heavens and feel the presence of Yahweh, we are also feeling the ancient strength of El. The God who created the stars, who watched over the earth from his tent by the rivers, who loved his children with a father's heart, he is still with us, and every prayer, every act of faith, every moment of awe and wonder. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the elder's tale drew to a close. The listeners felt a deep connection to the stories of old, to the gods who shaped their world and their understanding of the divine. El, the ancient Canaanite deity, and Yahweh, the God of Israel, were not just figures of the past, they were living parts of their heritage, their beliefs, and their hearts. The night settled in, and the stars began to twinkle above, silent witnesses to the tales of gods and men. The people felt a sense of peace, knowing that the wisdom of El and the power of Yahweh would guide them through the darkness and into the light of a new day. The fire flickered, casting shadows on the faces gathered around it. The village elder, eyes filled with the wisdom of many years, leaned forward and began a tale that held the mystery of a goddess lost to time. His voice was gentle but powerful, drawing the listeners into a world where the divine feminine once held a place of honor and reverence. In the ancient land of Canaan, Ashira was worshipped as the great mother goddess, the queen of heaven. She was the goddess of fertility, love, and life, her presence felt in the lush fields and blooming gardens. Ashira was often depicted with a sacred tree or as a tree herself, her branches reaching towards the heavens, her roots deep in the earth. To the Canaanites, she was the nurturing force of nature, the giver of life and sustenance. The elder's voice wove images of a time when people would gather at sacred groves and high places to honor Ashira. They would offer her fruits and grains, symbols of the life she bestowed upon the earth. Women, especially, turned to Ashira, seeking her blessings for fertility and the safe birth of their children. The goddess was seen as a protector, a divine mother who watched over her children with a loving and gentle heart. As the elder spoke, the listeners could almost see the ancient groves, feel the cool shade of the trees, and sense the presence of the goddess among them. Ashira was not a distant deity but a part of their everyday lives, a comforting presence in a world filled with uncertainties. When the tribes of Israel settled in Canaan, they encountered the worship of Ashira. Despite the monotheistic leanings of their own religion, traces of her worship began to appear in their practices. Archaeological findings, the elders said, reveal that Ashira was not entirely forgotten. Inscriptions and artifacts unearthed from ancient sites showed that she was venerated alongside Yahweh, her image and symbols present in the household shrines of the Israelites. The listeners were captivated, imagining the hidden corners of ancient homes where small figurines of Ashira stood beside symbols of Yahweh. These were the homes where the old ways had not entirely vanished, where the goddess of the past still held a silent vigil over her people. The Israelites, in their transition from a polytheistic to a monotheistic faith, found it hard to let go of the nurturing mother figure who had been part of their heritage for so long. But the elder's tone grew somber as he spoke of the decline of Ashira's worship. Over time, as the Israelite religion evolved and solidified its monotheistic identity, the worship of Ashira was increasingly seen as a threat to the exclusive devotion to Yahweh. Prophets and religious leaders condemned the worship of Ashira, seeing it as idolatry, a deviation from the true faith. The sacred groves were cut down, her symbols destroyed, and her name was erased from the official religious texts. Yet, even in the face of such determined efforts to erase her, Ashira's presence lingered in the hearts of the people. The elder spoke of the quiet defiance of those who still remembered, who still whispered her name in times of need. The memory of the goddess was not easily extinguished. She lived on in the stories passed down through generations, and the faint echoes of prayers offered in secret. The children around the fire could feel the weight of these memories, the sadness of a goddess forgotten, and the resilience of her enduring legacy. Ashira, the great mother goddess, was more than a relic of the past. She was a symbol of the enduring connection between humanity and the divine feminine. Her decline and disappearance from the official religious narrative did not erase her from the hearts of those who had once known her. The elder's tale was not just a story of loss, but a reminder of the complexity and richness of human faith. It was a testament to the power of memory, the strength of tradition, and the deep, unbreakable bond between the divine and the mortal. As the fire burned low and the night grew darker, the listeners felt a profound sense of connection to the ancient past, to the goddess who had once been, and to the stories that kept her alive. Ashira's tale was a story of love, of life, and of a divine presence that could never truly be forgotten. The goddess, with her nurturing spirit and her protective embrace, remained a part of the human soul, a whisper in the wind, a memory in the heart. The elder's voice faded into the night, but the story of Ashira, the forgotten goddess, continued to resonate, a silent testament to the enduring power of faith and the sacredness of the divine feminine. The storm raged outside the village, lightning cracking the sky, thunder shaking the earth. Inside a small hut, a group of villagers huddled together, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a single lantern. The village elder, his eyes reflecting both the storm outside and the stories within, began to speak. His voice carried over the howling wind, pulling everyone into the ancient tale of Baal, the mighty storm god. Baal was born from the heart of the storm, his presence felt in every clap of thunder and flash of lightning. The Canaanites revered him as the god of rain, fertility, and harvest. He brought life to the parched earth, his rains nourishing the fields and filling the rivers. Baal was depicted as a powerful warrior, often holding a lightning bolt in one hand, a symbol of his control over the heavens and the earth. Imagine, the elder's voice grew intense, a time when the rains did not come, when the earth cracked under the relentless sun. The people cried out, their voices rising to the heavens, pleading for Baal to hear them. And when the first drop of rain fell, they knew their prayers had been answered. Baal had heard them. The villagers could almost feel the relief of those ancient people, the joy of rain after a long drought. Baal was not just a storm god, he was a life-giver, a savior in times of need. His influence stretched far and wide, his name invoked in prayers and rituals meant to ensure the prosperity of the land and its people. Yet, Baal's story was not one of unchallenged reverence. The elder's voice took on a darker tone as he spoke of the conflicts that arose with the worship of Yahweh. The biblical texts tell of these fierce clashes, where Baal and Yahweh stood on opposing sides. The prophets of Yahweh denounced Baal, seeing his worship as a betrayal of their one true God. The struggle between these two powerful deities was not just a battle of faiths, it was a battle for the hearts and souls of the people. The listeners leaned in closer, the tension of the ancient conflict palpable. Elijah, the prophet of Yahweh, the elder recounted, challenged the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. It was a test of divine power, a contest to see whose God would answer by fire. The prophets of Baal cried out, their voices echoing across the mountain, but there was no answer. And then Elijah prayed, and the fire of Yahweh fell from the sky, consuming the offering, the altar, and even the stones. The villagers could almost see the fire, feel the heat, and hear the cries of the prophets of Baal as their God remained silent. It was a moment of triumph for Yahweh, a powerful demonstration that left no doubt about his supremacy. But the story of Baal did not end there. Despite the dramatic confrontation on Mount Carmel, Baal's influence persisted. The people of Israel had long lived among the Canaanites, and the lines between their beliefs often blurred. Baal's role as a storm god, a bringer of rain, was hard to forget in a land so dependent on the capriciousness of nature. His festivals and rituals, deeply embedded in the agricultural cycles, found echoes in the practices of the Israelites. Baal's presence, the elder continued, was felt in the fields where farmers planted their seeds, in the homes where families prayed for rain, in the hearts of those who remembered the old ways. The villagers felt a connection to this ancient god, understanding the allure of a deity so closely tied to the rhythms of their daily lives. The elder spoke of the many stories where Baal appeared not as an enemy, but as a figure intertwined with the history and faith of the people. Baal's legends, filled with battles against chaos and the forces of death, mirrored the struggles of the Israelites in their own quest for survival and prosperity. The storm god's bravery and strength were qualities that resonated deeply, even as the worship of Yahweh grew stronger and more defined. As the storm outside began to wane, the elder's tale drew to a close. He spoke of Baal's enduring legacy, a god who, despite the conflicts and condemnations, remained a significant figure in the ancient world. The villagers felt a sense of awe and respect for Baal, recognizing the complexity of their ancestors' beliefs and the powerful forces that shaped their history. The night was quiet now, the storm a distant memory. The villagers sat in silence, reflecting on the tale of Baal, the storm god whose thunderous presence had once ruled the skies. They understood that their history was not just a series of victories and defeats, but a rich tapestry of beliefs and traditions that had shaped their world in profound ways. Baal, the god of storm and rain, might have been a rival to Yahweh, but he was also a part of their shared heritage, a reminder of the ancient ties between the people and the divine forces that governed their lives. The elder's story had brought the storm god to life, leaving a lasting impression on the hearts and minds of those who listened, a testament to the enduring power of myth and memory. The elder's voice rose above the crackling fire, eyes gleaming with the intensity of the tale he was about to tell. The children and adults alike leaned in, captivated. Tonight, he would speak of Anath, the fierce and fearless warrior goddess whose name struck both awe and terror in the hearts of those who dared to hear it. In the ancient land of Canaan, where the sun blazed fiercely and the earth was often stained with the blood of battles, Anath was revered as the goddess of war and love. Her spirit was as untamed as the wild winds that swept across the plains. Anath was depicted as a beautiful young woman, but behind her enchanting smile lay the heart of a warrior. She wore a crown of horns, and in her hands she wielded weapons that gleamed with a divine light. Anath was not like other goddesses, the elder began, his voice low and commanding. She was a force of nature, a whirlwind of fury and passion. She fought with a ferocity that no mortal could match, her strength and courage unmatched by any man or god. The villagers could almost see her, a vision of beauty and power, her eyes burning with an inner fire. Anath's legends were filled with tales of her bravery and her insatiable thirst for victory. She was the protector of her people, the avenger of wrongs, and the destroyer of enemies. Her name was invoked on the eve of battles, her blessing sought by those who went to war. One of the most famous myths of Anath was her relentless pursuit of her brother Baal's enemies. Baal, the storm god, had been slain by Moloch, the god of death. Anath, consumed with rage and sorrow, took up her weapons and descended into the underworld to avenge her brother. The battle that ensued was fierce and bloody, but Anath emerged victorious, her enemies vanquished and her brother restored to life. Imagine, the elder's voice trembled with emotion, a sister's love so strong that she would face the very god of death himself. Anath's courage knew no bounds, her love for her brother an unstoppable force. The villagers felt a shiver run down their spines, the power of Anath's love and fury resonating deeply within them. Anath was not just a goddess of war, she was a symbol of loyalty, of the unbreakable bonds of family, and the relentless pursuit of justice. In the biblical texts, Anath's presence was more subtle, but her influence was undeniable. She was often associated with the fierce and protective aspects of the goddesses mentioned in the scriptures. Her attributes could be seen in the stories of women who displayed remarkable bravery and strength, their actions reflecting the spirit of the warrior goddess. Think of Deborah, the elder continued, the prophetess who led her people to victory against overwhelming odds. Or Jael, who single-handedly defeated the enemy general Sisera. In their courage and determination, we see the echoes of Anath, the spirit of the warrior goddess alive and well in the hearts of these women. The villagers were silent, their minds filled with images of these biblical heroines, their deeds immortalized in the sacred texts. Anath's legacy lived on, her influence woven into the very fabric of their faith and history. Anath's role in the ancient Near Eastern religion was not limited to her prowess in battle. She was also a goddess of love and fertility, her dual nature reflecting the complex and often contradictory aspects of the divine. She was a lover as well as a fighter, her passion as intense as her rage. The people of Canaan turned to Anath not only for protection in times of war, but also for blessings in matters of the heart and home. The elder spoke of the rituals and festivals dedicated to Anath, the celebrations of her power and grace. The people would gather to honor her, offering sacrifices and singing songs of praise. They danced and feasted, their joy and gratitude filling the air. In those moments, they felt her presence among them, a powerful and protective force that watched over them and guided them through the challenges of life. Anath's spirit is still with us, the elder said softly, in every act of courage, in every fight for justice, and every bond of love that withstands the trials of time. She lives in our hearts, a reminder of the strength and passion that lies within us all. As the fire burned low and the night grew deeper, the villagers felt a profound connection to Anath, the warrior goddess. They understood that her story was not just a tale of ancient battles and forgotten gods, but a reflection of the enduring human spirit. Anath's courage, loyalty, and love were qualities that transcended time, inspiring those who heard her story to find their own strength and passion. The elder's voice faded into the night, but the tale of Anath lingered in the hearts of the listeners. They felt her presence in the stillness, a silent guardian watching over them, a warrior goddess whose legacy would never fade. The villagers knew that as long as they remembered her, Anath would continue to inspire and protect, her spirit a beacon of hope and strength in a world filled with challenges and uncertainties. The fields lay golden under the sun, the air heavy with the promise of a bountiful harvest. The villagers moved among the rows of ripened grain, their hands working swiftly, their hearts filled with gratitude. At the edge of the field stood the village elder, his gaze distant, lost in the memories of a time when the earth's abundance was seen as the gift of a god named Dagon. Dagon was the god of grain, the provider of sustenance, and the cornerstone of life for the ancient Philistines and Canaanites. His origins were shrouded in the mists of time, but his significance was as clear as the fields of wheat that swayed in the breeze. Dagon's name was whispered in prayers and sung in hymns, his image carved into stone and wood, standing as a guardian over the crops that fed the people. The elder's voice broke through the sounds of the harvest, drawing the villagers' attention. In the days of old, he began, Dagon was revered as the bringer of life, the god who blessed the earth with grain and filled our stores with food. His blessings were the difference between abundance and famine, between life and death. The listeners could feel the weight of those words, understanding the vital role Dagon played in the lives of their ancestors. The grain god's presence was felt in every seed sown, every stalk that grew tall and strong, every meal that graced their tables. To the ancient peoples, Dagon was not just a deity but a benevolent provider whose gifts sustained their very existence. The elder spoke of the rituals that honored Dagon, the festivals held to celebrate his generosity. The people would gather at the temple, offering the first fruits of their harvest, thanking the god for his blessings. They sang and danced, their hearts light with joy and gratitude. The air was filled with the sounds of music and laughter, a testament to the bond between the people and their god. But Dagon's story was not one of unbroken peace and prosperity. The elder's voice grew somber as he recounted the biblical references to Dagon, tales of conflict and destruction that marred the god's legacy. The Ark of the Covenant, he said, was captured by the Philistines and brought to the temple of Dagon. But the next morning, the statue of Dagon was found fallen, face down before the Arkansas. And again, the following day, Dagon was found broken, his head and hands severed. The villagers could almost see the scene, the once proud statue of Dagon lying in pieces, a powerful symbol of the clash between the gods. The biblical texts told of Dagon's defeat, his impotence in the face of the God of Israel. It was a moment of triumph for the Israelites, a divine demonstration of power that left no doubt about the supremacy of their God. Yet, despite these tales of conflict, Dagon's influence endured. The elder spoke of the cultural and religious impact of the grain god, the ways in which his worship shaped the lives of the people. Dagon was more than a god of grain, he explained. He was a symbol of fertility, of the cycle of life and death, of the connection between the earth and the divine. The villagers listened, their minds filled with images of ancient rituals and sacred ceremonies. Dagon's worship was deeply intertwined with the rhythms of the natural world, his blessings sought in times of planting and harvest, his name invoked in prayers for rain and fertile soil. The god's presence was a comforting constant, a reminder of the divine forces that governed their lives. The elder spoke of the many temples dedicated to Dagon, grand structures that stood as a testament to the god's importance. These temples were the center of community life, places where people gathered to worship, to celebrate, and to seek guidance. The priests of Dagon played a crucial role, acting as intermediaries between the god and the people, their rituals ensuring the continued blessings of the grain god. As the elder's tale unfolded, the villagers felt a deep sense of connection to their past, to the ancient traditions that had shaped their world. Dagon, the grain god, was a figure of enduring significance, his legacy woven into the fabric of their culture. The elder's voice, filled with reverence and wisdom, brought the god to life, making the ancient stories resonate with the listeners. The sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the fields. The harvest was almost complete, the grain gathered and stored, the promise of sustenance for the months ahead. The villagers stood in silence, their hearts filled with gratitude for the gifts of the earth and the blessings of the gods. Dagon's tale was a reminder of the enduring bond between the people and the divine, a testament to the power of faith and tradition. The grain god's legacy lived on in the hearts of those who remembered, a symbol of the eternal cycle of life and death, of abundance and gratitude. As the elder's voice faded into the night, the villagers felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that the spirit of Dagon, the god of grain, would continue to watch over them, blessing their fields and filling their stores with the bounty of the earth. The tale of Dagon, rich with history and meaning, had touched their hearts, leaving an indelible mark on their souls. The flames danced in the darkness, casting eerie shadows on the faces of those gathered around. The night was filled with a sense of foreboding, an air of solemnity that seemed to weigh heavy on the hearts of everyone present. The village elder, his voice carrying the gravity of ancient tales, began to speak of Moloch, the god of sacrifice. The listeners leaned in, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination, as the elder unveiled a story filled with both horror and reverence. Moloch was a god shrouded in mystery and dread, his worship marked by rituals that sent shivers down the spine. He was depicted as a fearsome figure, often shown with the body of a man and the head of a bull, his outstretched arms ready to receive the offerings of his followers. The Canaanites believed that Moloch demanded the ultimate sacrifice, a price so high that it was almost unthinkable. Yet, they believed that in appeasing Moloch, they would secure his favor, his protection, and his blessings. Imagine, the elder began, his voice trembling with emotion, the sight of parents bringing their children to the altar of Moloch, their faces pale with fear and sorrow. The flames roared, the heat intense, as they placed their precious ones into the arms of the god. Their cries filled the night, mingling with the chants of the priests, a haunting symphony of devotion and despair. The villagers felt a chill run down their spines, the horror of such an act almost too much to bear. The worship of Moloch was not just a religious practice, it was a ritual that demanded everything, a sacrifice that left scars on the hearts of those who participated. The elder's words painted a vivid picture of the pain and the anguish, the desperation and the hope that drove people to such extremes. In the biblical texts, Moloch was condemned with fierce denunciation. The God of Israel, Yahweh, demanded absolute devotion, and the worship of Moloch was seen as a grave betrayal. The scriptures spoke of the Valley of Hinnom, a place where children were sacrificed to Moloch, a practice that provoked the wrath of Yahweh. The prophets cried out against these abominations, their voices ringing with righteous fury. Jeremiah, the elder continued, stood before the people, his eyes blazing with anger. They have built the high places of Topheth in the valley of Ben Hinnom to burn their sons and daughters in the fire, something I did not command, nor did it enter my mind. The words echoed through the ages, a testament to the horror and the condemnation of those dark rituals. The villagers could almost hear the prophet's voice, feel the intensity of his condemnation. The biblical texts did not just speak of Moloch, they spoke against him, portraying his worship as an affront to the very essence of their faith. The elders' recounting of these passages left the listeners with a sense of the deep conflict, the struggle between the devotion to Yahweh and the fear of Moloch. Despite the biblical condemnation, the worship of Moloch left a lasting mark on the ancient world. Historical and archaeological evidence unearthed remnants of altars and shrines, places where the rituals of sacrifice had taken place. The elder spoke of these discoveries, the cold, hard evidence of a practice that had once been all too real. Archaeologists, he said, have found the charred remains of children buried in the ground near ancient altars. These bones tell a story of their own, a story of lives cut short, of dreams unfulfilled. The ruins of the shrines, the remnants of the altars, stand as silent witnesses to the worship of Moloch, a haunting reminder of the past. The villagers were silent, their minds filled with images of those ancient sacrifices, the bones of the children a stark and poignant testimony to the rituals that had once been performed. The elder's voice, heavy with the weight of history, brought the past to life, making the story of Moloch more than just a tale, but a reality that had left a deep and lasting impact. Moloch's worship, with its demands for the ultimate sacrifice, was a practice that struck at the heart of human existence. It was a reminder of the lengths to which people would go in their quest for divine favor, the depths of their devotion, and the horrors that could emerge from their fears and their hopes. The elder's tale was a powerful testament to the complexities of faith, the struggle between light and darkness, between hope and despair. As the flames flickered and the night grew darker, the villagers sat in silence, their hearts heavy with the story they had heard. The tale of Moloch, the god of sacrifice, had touched them deeply, leaving an indelible mark on their souls. They understood that the past was not just a series of events, but a tapestry of human experiences, of faith and fear, of devotion and sacrifice. The elder's voice faded into the night, but the story of Moloch lingered in the hearts of the listeners. They felt a profound connection to the ancient world, to the people who had once walked the earth, their lives shaped by their beliefs and their rituals. The tale of Moloch, with its haunting images and powerful emotions, had brought them closer to the past, making them reflect on the nature of faith and the power of sacrifice. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue across the rugged landscape of Moab. The villagers gathered near a small altar, their hearts filled with a mix of hope and fear, knowing that tonight they would pay tribute to Chemosh, their god. Chemosh was no ordinary deity. He was seen as a powerful figure, a warrior god who demanded loyalty and offered protection in return. The people whispered his name reverently, aware that their very lives depended on his favor. Chemosh was often depicted as a fierce warrior, adorned in battle attire, his presence commanding respect and reverence. His followers believed he had the power to bring victory in battle, to ensure bountiful harvests, and to provide strength in times of need. The villagers had learned to rely on Chemosh, calling upon him in moments of desperation and need, seeking his guidance and blessings. As the flames flickered to life, the elder began to recount the rituals associated with Chemosh. In the days of old, he said, people would gather here, bringing offerings of grain, wine, and livestock. They would kneel before the altar, their hearts filled with prayers, hoping to earn Chemosh's favor. The priests would chant and sing, their voices rising in harmony, weaving a tapestry of devotion and reverence. The villagers listened intently, envisioning the scenes of worship from ages past, the echo of chants filling the air, the smell of burnt offerings wafting through the night. They could almost see the priests adorned in ceremonial garments, their faces solemn as they performed the sacred rituals that connected the people to their god. Yet, amid the devotion, there was an undeniable darkness that surrounded Chemosh's worship. The elder's voice grew heavy with emotion as he spoke of the sacrifices made in Chemosh's name. It is said that in desperate times, the Moabites would offer their own children to Chemosh, believing that such an ultimate sacrifice would secure his blessings. They would place their beloved infants upon the altar, their tiny forms lost to the flames. It was a horror that gripped the hearts of many, a desperation born from fear. A hush fell over the villagers, the weight of the elder's words sinking deep into their hearts. The thought of sacrificing a child, of relinquishing a precious life in the hope of divine favor, was a burden too heavy to bear. Yet, for some, it was a choice made in the face of insurmountable odds, a belief that drove them to the brink of despair. In the biblical narratives, Chemosh emerged as a figure often at odds with the God of Israel. The elder spoke of the encounters between the Israelites and the Moabites, where Chemosh played a central role. In the book of Numbers, he began, the Israelites found themselves confronted by the Moabite king, Balak, who sought the help of the prophet Balaam to curse the people of Israel. Balak believed that Chemosh would provide the power to defeat the Israelites, to drive them away from the land they sought. The villagers shivered as they imagined the tension of that moment, the desperation of a king turning to a god for help, trying to thwart the plans of a people who sought a home. The elder continued, his voice filled with the weight of history. But Chemosh was not the ultimate power. Yahweh's strength prevailed, and the Israelites continued their journey, a reminder that faith and devotion could overcome even the fiercest of adversaries. As the fire crackled, the elder turned to the influence Chemosh had on neighboring cultures. Chemosh was not just a god for the Moabites, he explained. He reached across borders, leaving a mark on the cultures surrounding him. The Ammonites and other tribes would often worship similar deities, reflecting the shared beliefs and practices of the time. Chemosh became a symbol of power, a representation of the fierce spirit that drove people to battle and conquest. The villagers felt a deep connection to their heritage, understanding how the worship of Chemosh had shaped their identity. They imagined the stories of bravery and conflict, the echoes of the past resonating within them. Chemosh was not merely a figure from ancient texts, he was a part of their legacy, a reminder of the struggles and sacrifices of their ancestors. As night settled in, the elder's voice softened. Yet, despite the fear that surrounded Chemosh, there was a resilience among the people. They found strength in their faith, the belief that their God would protect them in times of strife. Chemosh may have demanded much, but in return, he offered the promise of victory and safety. The villagers felt a mix of emotions, fear, reverence, and a sense of pride. They understood that the worship of Chemosh was complex, a tapestry woven with threads of love, desperation, and hope. As the flames flickered and the shadows danced, they realized that the stories of their gods were not just tales of power and sacrifice, but also reflections of the human experience. The night wore on, and as the elder concluded his recounting, the villagers gathered closer around the fire. They understood that their connection to Chemosh was woven into their very being, a part of their history that would not be forgotten. The legacy of their God, with all its complexities, lived on in their hearts, reminding them of the sacrifices made and the strength found in devotion. As they sat in the warmth of the fire, the villagers felt a renewed sense of purpose. They would honor their past while forging a path toward the future, a future shaped by the lessons learned from their gods. In the flickering light, the spirit of Chemosh lingered, a reminder of the enduring power of faith, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds of their shared history. The sun cast long shadows across the rocky hills of Ammon, where the people gathered for a solemn festival honoring Milcom, their god. The air was thick with incense, the scent mingling with the whispers of prayers and chants that rose like smoke toward the heavens. The villagers' faces were a blend of hope and fear, for Milcom was not a god to be taken lightly. He was powerful, demanding unwavering loyalty, and the people knew that pleasing him was crucial for their survival. Milcom was often depicted as a stern figure, a warrior clad in armor, with an imposing presence that commanded respect. His followers believed he was a god of protection, a guardian of the Ammonite people in their battles and struggles. The villagers told stories of Milcom's might, how he guided their warriors into battle, ensuring victory against their enemies. As the elders stepped forward to lead the ceremony, the crowd fell silent, their eyes fixed on the altar that stood at the center, adorned with offerings of grain, fruits, and precious metals. Milcom, the elder began, his voice steady yet filled with reverence, is not just a deity, he is our protector, our champion in times of war. His strength is what allows us to stand against those who threaten our way of life. We honor him to seek his favor, to ask for his blessings in our battles and our daily lives. As he spoke, the villagers felt a wave of emotion wash over them. They understood the weight of their devotion, the sacrifices they made to appease their God. With each offering placed on the altar, they poured out their hopes and fears, seeking assurance that Milcom would watch over them. Yet, alongside their devotion was an underlying current of dread, a recognition that Milcom's favor could just as easily turn to wrath if he felt slighted. The elder continued, recounting the biblical accounts that cast Milcom in a troubling light. In the scriptures, Milcom is mentioned as a rival to Yahweh, the God of Israel. The prophets warned against the worship of Milcom, decrying the practices that surrounded his altar. It was said that some would even offer their children as sacrifices, believing that such a gift would curry favor with the god. This abomination drew the ire of the Almighty. The villagers felt a shiver run down their spines at the thought of such sacrifices. The very idea of offering a child, the most innocent and precious of lives, sent chills through their hearts. Yet, they also understood that desperation could drive people to unimaginable lengths, seeking the approval of a god who demanded the ultimate price. Milcom's name is often spoken in the same breath as Moloch, the elder said, his tone heavy with sadness. Both deities share a dark reputation for requiring sacrifices, and both have been condemned in the scriptures. The people of Israel were warned to turn away from such practices, to seek only the true God, who would never ask for such a horrific offering. As the elder spoke, the villagers felt a deep sense of conflict. They held a fierce loyalty to their traditions and their god, but the stories of sacrifice filled them with unease. They wanted to honor Milcom, to ensure his protection, yet they also yearned for a faith that brought love and mercy rather than fear and desperation. Milcom's relationship with other deities painted a complex picture of the ancient world. He was often compared to Chemosh, the Moabite god, both embodying similar attributes of power and warfare. In many ways, the elder explained, Milcom and Chemosh were rivals, their followers locked in a struggle for supremacy. Yet, their worshippers often blurred the lines between them, adopting traits and practices from each other, reflecting the interconnectedness of these cultures. As the flames flickered in the dusk, the villagers could almost hear the echoes of ancient prayers, the desperate pleas for favor from both Milcom and Chemosh. The elder spoke of the influence of Milcom beyond the borders of Ammon, how neighboring cultures had also adopted aspects of his worship, creating a tapestry of beliefs that intertwined and evolved over time. The Ammonites were not alone in their devotion, the elder said, his voice filled with warmth. Their rituals and practices influenced those around them as stories of Milcom spread across the region. Even the Israelites, in their struggles, found themselves drawn to the allure of power and protection that Milcom promised. It is a reminder of the complexities of faith, of how the human heart seeks both connection and security. As the night wore on, the villagers raised their voices in unison, chanting prayers to Milcom, their words blending together like a river flowing toward the heavens. They poured their hearts into the offerings, hoping to forge a bond with their God, one that would bring them strength and guidance in the uncertain times ahead. In that moment, the villagers felt the weight of their history, the echoes of their ancestors who had worshipped Milcom long before them. They understood that their devotion came with challenges, a struggle to balance faith with morality, hope with fear. They were part of a larger story, one woven through generations, filled with love, loss, and longing. As the final embers glowed in the night, the villagers left the altar, their hearts heavy with the burdens of their faith. Milcom remained a figure of strength and power, yet also a reminder of the complexities of belief. They carried his legacy within them, a testament to the struggles of their past, a hope for the future that sought to find harmony amid the turmoil. The tale of Milcom, rich with emotion and meaning, lingered in their hearts, a guiding light in their journey through life. In the heart of ancient Canaan, where the sun bathed the land in golden light, the villagers gathered to celebrate the arrival of spring. Colorful flowers blossomed all around, their vibrant hues symbolizing the new life that Astarte, the goddess of fertility, brought to the earth. Women adorned themselves with garlands of fresh blooms, while children danced joyfully, their laughter echoing through the valleys. The air was filled with hope, a promise of abundance and growth, as they honored the goddess who held the power to nurture and sustain life. Astarte was known far and wide, her image often depicted as a beautiful woman, gracefully poised with arms raised, embodying the essence of fertility and femininity. Her presence brought comfort to those who yearned for children and filled the hearts of farmers with faith as they planted their seeds. The villagers spoke her name with reverence, knowing that Astarte was more than a deity, she was a vital force that shaped their very existence. As the festival began, the elder of the village stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of generations. Astarte, he said, is the goddess who blesses us with the fruits of our labor. She watches over our crops, ensuring they flourish, and she hears the prayers of those longing for family. In her embrace, we find hope and strength. The villagers listened closely, their hearts swelling with gratitude as they reflected on the blessings Astarte bestowed upon them. The elder recounted tales of Astarte's origins, her roots tracing back to the ancient Near Eastern cultures. She was not just a local goddess, she was revered in many lands, known by different names and celebrated in various traditions. In Egypt, she was called Isis, and in Phoenicia, she was known as Asta, but her essence remained the same, he explained. Astarte symbolizes love, war, and fertility, embodying the duality of creation and destruction, a reminder that life is intertwined with both joy and sorrow. As the villagers gathered around the fire, the elders shared stories of how Astarte influenced their practices. To honor her, we offer the first fruits of our harvest, the sweetest grains and the ripest fruits, he said. Women seek her blessings in childbirth, lighting candles in her name, and praying for healthy, strong children. Our lives are enriched by her presence, and our traditions reflect the deep connection we have with her." The villagers nodded, their eyes shining with a mixture of admiration and longing. They knew the struggles of loss and the ache of empty arms. They remembered those who had suffered the heart-wrenching pain of infertility, the silent prayers whispered in the dark, hoping for Astarte's grace. And in those moments, they felt a sense of unity, a shared experience that bound them together in their devotion to the goddess. Astarte's representation in the Bible, however, was a different tale. The elder's voice grew somber as he spoke of the warnings against her worship. In the scriptures, we read how the Israelites were tempted to stray from the path, drawn to the allure of Astarte's beauty and the promises of abundance, he said. But with that temptation came dire consequences. The prophets warned the people to turn away from foreign gods, to seek the one true God who would provide for their needs. The villagers felt a chill at the thought of Astarte's worship being condemned. They understood the struggle of maintaining their faith in a world filled with competing desires and the temptation to worship deities who promised easy solutions. Yet, they also recognized the power of Astarte's message, a reminder of the importance of nurturing life, love, and the bonds that connected them as a community. Though Astarte was seen as a rival to Yahweh, the elder continued, we cannot ignore her role in shaping our beliefs and practices. The fertility rituals, the celebrations of love, and the reverence for nature's cycles are deeply rooted in our culture, and Astarte embodies those values. The villagers reflected on the beauty of their traditions, understanding that even in the face of condemnation, the essence of Astarte lived on in their hearts. As the night deepened, the fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows across the villagers' faces. They shared their own stories of longing, love, and loss, speaking of children born and those who were missed. They spoke of the harvests that had brought joy and the ones that had failed, each moment a reminder of Astarte's influence on their lives. Tears glistened in the eyes of mothers who had lost children, while hopeful whispers filled the air from those still waiting for their blessings. With the stars shining brightly overhead, the villagers raised their voices in song, a tribute to Astarte, their goddess of fertility. Their harmonies wove through the night like a tapestry, binding their hopes and dreams together. They sang of the earth's bounty, of love that transcended loss, and of the resilience of the human spirit. In that moment, they felt Astarte's presence among them, a gentle reminder that life, in all its complexities, was a sacred gift. As the festival drew to a close, the villagers took with them the spirit of Astarte, her essence woven into the fabric of their lives. They understood that while the world was filled with challenges and uncertainties, their devotion to the goddess of fertility connected them in profound ways. Astarte was a symbol of hope, love, and the unwavering strength that resided within them. In their hearts, they carried the stories of their ancestors, the traditions that shaped their community, and the lessons learned from the past. They honored Astarte not just as a goddess, but as a part of their journey, a reminder that life, in all its beauty and pain, was a gift to be cherished. The festival may have ended, but the spirit of Astarte would continue to guide them, nurturing their dreams and fostering the bonds that held them together as a family. In a time long past, when the world was woven with the threads of myth and reality, there lived a deity named Resheph, feared and revered across the ancient Near East. Resheph was known as the god of plague, a powerful figure whose presence struck both terror and awe into the hearts of mortals. His name was whispered in the dark corners of villages, a haunting reminder of the thin line between life and death. As twilight fell over the land, the villagers of a small community gathered around the flickering flames of their bonfire. The air was thick with a sense of unease, for word had spread of a mysterious illness that swept through neighboring towns, leaving sickness and despair in its wake. Mothers clutched their children tightly, their hearts pounding with fear. The elders exchanged worried glances, their voices hushed as they spoke of Resheph. Resheph, an elder began, his voice trembling with gravity, is a god of both destruction and protection. He wields the power to unleash plague upon the land, striking down those he deems unworthy. But he is also a warrior, a protector who can turn his wrath against those who threaten his followers. The villagers listened intently, knowing that they were at the mercy of a deity who held their fate in his hands. The elder continued, recounting ancient tales of Resheph's role in battles and his fierce protection of those who honored him. In times of war, Resheph would ride forth on a chariot of fire, wielding arrows that could bring forth pestilence and disease. His presence was both a blessing and a curse, a reminder that the gods were capricious and often unforgiving. A shiver ran through the crowd as they imagined the fierce deity, his fiery chariot racing across the sky, striking down the unworthy with his lethal arrows. As the flames danced in the night, the elder spoke of the references to Resheph found in biblical texts and ancient inscriptions. In the Bible, we hear of his name in connection with the plagues that ravaged Egypt, he said. He was invoked during times of illness, a plea for mercy from a god who could bring both healing and destruction. The villagers' faces reflected a mixture of fear and reverence, their minds racing with thoughts of the ancient texts that described the devastating power of the gods. The elder paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle over the crowd. He continued, explaining how Resheph influenced the beliefs and practices of those who inhabited the ancient Near East. His worship was widespread, with temples dedicated to his honor across the land. People would bring offerings to appease him, seeking protection from the ravages of disease. They would light candles and offer prayers, hoping to ward off the darkness that loomed over their lives. A chill swept through the villagers as they recalled stories of those who had suffered from illness, their loved ones struck down by an unseen force. The memories were vivid, faces filled with fear, the sound of coughing in the night, the quiet mourning that followed. They understood that Resheph was not just a distant figure, but a reality woven into the fabric of their lives. His power was both feared and respected, a constant reminder of the fragility of life. As the night grew darker, a young mother rose, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I have lost so much to the plague," she spoke softly, her voice trembling. "My husband, my sister, they were taken too soon. I am afraid for my children, afraid that they will suffer the same fate." The villagers exchanged glances, their hearts heavy with empathy. They knew her pain all too well, the ache of loss that resided in their own hearts. The elder approached her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Resheph is powerful, yes, but we must also remember that we have the strength to stand against him. We can offer our prayers, our sacrifices, and call upon the gods for protection. Together, we can face the darkness." The mother nodded, her resolve strengthening as she felt the support of her community surrounding her. They would not let fear tear them apart, they would face whatever came their way as one. As the night wore on, the villagers gathered together, their voices rising in prayer. They called upon Resheph, not only to acknowledge his power, but to plead for mercy and protection. They understood that life was unpredictable, filled with both joy and sorrow, and they sought to find strength in their unity. The flickering flames illuminated their faces, each expression a testament to their shared hopes and fears. The stories of Resheph served as a reminder of the delicate balance between life and death. In their prayers, they found solace, a connection to something greater than themselves. They recognized that while Resheph could bring plague and suffering, he could also be a protector, a deity who could stand with them in their darkest moments. As dawn broke, the first light of morning chased away the shadows of the night. The villagers emerged from their gathering, hearts a little lighter, determined to face the day ahead. They knew that the threat of plague still lingered, but they had called upon the God who held that power, and in their collective strength, they found hope. Resheph was a god of plague, yes, but he was also a part of their story, woven into the tapestry of their lives. They would honor him, not with fear alone, but with understanding and reverence. They would continue to share their tales of loss and resilience, for in doing so, they could forge a path forward, navigating the uncertainties of life with courage and strength. In the quiet of the morning, the villagers looked out over their land, a mixture of hope and determination in their hearts. They would remember the power of Resheph, but they would also embrace the bonds of their community, knowing that together, they could withstand whatever challenges lay ahead. In a land where shadows danced at dusk and whispered secrets filled the air, there existed a god who ruled the depths of the underworld, Nergal. He was a figure cloaked in mystery and power, feared by many and respected by all. Nergal was the god of war and the underworld, embodying the duality of life and death, bringing both destruction and the promise of rebirth. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the ancient city of Ur, the villagers felt the weight of the night settle in. Stories of Nergal were shared in hushed tones, around flickering fires, as they gathered to honor him. His fierce nature was known to all. He was a deity of judgment, a harbinger of fate, and a protector of those who ventured into the afterlife. The elders spoke of Nergal's origins, how he emerged from the chaotic void to take his place as the ruler of the underworld. He was a warrior, they would say, strong and relentless, with a heart as fierce as a lion's. He waged battles against darkness and chaos, determined to bring order to the realm of the dead. The flickering firelight reflected in their eyes, igniting a spark of fear and admiration as they recounted the tales of Nergal's conquests. As the stories unfolded, the villagers shivered at the thought of his presence. Nergal was often depicted with a fierce gaze, a lion-headed figure who commanded respect. He held a sword in one hand and a torch in the other, illuminating the darkness that enveloped the afterlife. His duality was complex. He was both a destroyer and a guardian, a figure who represented the inevitable truth of mortality. Yet, the tales of Nergal were not merely stories of fear. They also spoke of his compassion for the souls who entered his realm. In their retellings, the villagers remembered how Nergal welcomed the deceased with honor, guiding them through the darkness with a steady hand. He ensured that they were treated with dignity, for he understood the fragility of life. His judgment was not merely punishment, it was a necessary step in the journey of the soul, a passage toward rebirth. As night deepened, a mother named Lila spoke, her voice trembling as she shared her grief. "I lost my husband to the war," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "I fear for his soul, unsure of what awaits him in the underworld. Will Nergal be kind? Will he recognize the goodness in him?" The villagers leaned in closer, their hearts heavy with empathy. They understood her pain, the longing for reassurance in a world filled with uncertainty. The elder nodded knowingly. "Nergal is a warrior, yes, but he is also a guide. He knows the hearts of men, and he recognizes the struggles they face. Your husband's bravery will be honored, and Nergal will guide him with compassion." Lila took a deep breath, feeling a sense of comfort wash over her. In that moment, she understood that Nergal was not just a deity to be feared, but a protector of souls, a figure who would honor the sacrifices made in life. As the fire crackled, the villagers shared tales of Nergal's significance in ancient Near Eastern cultures. They spoke of his worship in various lands, his influence woven into the very fabric of their lives. In Babylon, he was revered as a god of war and fertility, the elder explained. He was called upon to protect cities and ensure a bountiful harvest. His presence was a reminder of the delicate balance between creation and destruction. Biblical references to Nergal painted a complex picture of the god. He appeared in the texts as a symbol of death and judgment, a force that could not be ignored. In the book of Jeremiah, we see him mentioned as a foreign god, the elder noted. He was feared for his power, yet his significance transcended borders. Cultures across the Near East recognized Nergal as a deity of the underworld, embodying the inevitability of death and the hope of rebirth. The villagers nodded, reflecting on the intertwining beliefs that shaped their understanding of life and death. They recognized that Nergal was a vital part of their journey, a reminder that the end was not merely an end, but a transition, a passage into the unknown. His influence permeated their rituals, their prayers, and their lives. As the night wore on, the villagers offered their prayers to Nergal, lighting candles in his honor. They called upon him to protect their loved ones, to guide the souls of the departed with kindness and understanding. Their voices rose in a heartfelt chorus, each note carrying their hopes and fears into the night. In that moment, the villagers understood that Nergal was not just a distant figure of myth, but a powerful presence in their lives. He embodied the reality of their existence, the joys, the sorrows, the battles fought, and the souls lost. They embraced the duality of life and death, recognizing that in every ending, there was the promise of a new beginning. As the first light of dawn broke through the darkness, the villagers felt a sense of renewal. They understood that while Nergal was the god of the underworld, he was also a symbol of hope. They would honor him not with fear alone, but with love and gratitude for the life they lived. They would carry the stories of their loved ones into the future, ensuring that their spirits would never be forgotten. In the heart of the ancient city of Ur, as the sun rose on a new day, the villagers felt a sense of peace. They had faced their fears, embraced their grief, and celebrated the life that Nergal represented. And in doing so, they found strength in their community, a bond that would carry them through the challenges ahead. Nergal would remain a part of their journey, guiding them with a fierce love that transcended the darkness, illuminating the path toward hope and rebirth. In a time when the sky roared with thunder and the earth trembled beneath the weight of impending storms, there reigned a god of immense power, Hadad, the weather god. His presence was felt in every raindrop that fell from the heavens and every gust of wind that swept across the land. Hadad was not just a force of nature, he was a deity who commanded both reverence and fear. The people prayed to him, their voices rising like the sound of distant thunder, seeking his favor to bless their crops and protect their homes. In the ancient city of Aleppo, the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The villagers gathered at the temple dedicated to Hadad, a grand structure adorned with symbols of lightning and rain. They came bearing offerings, sacrifices of grain, fruit, and livestock, hoping to appease the god who held their fortunes in his hands. The air was thick with anticipation, each villager praying silently that Hadad would listen and grant them the rains they so desperately needed. The high priest stood before the gathered crowd, his voice steady as he recited the ancient hymns dedicated to Hadad. "O great Hadad, Lord of the storm, hear our cries. We seek your mercy and your blessings." The villagers echoed his words, their hearts united in hope. They believed that Hadad could bring life-giving rains, nourishing the fields and ensuring a bountiful harvest. But they also understood the dangers of his wrath. Storms could destroy as easily as they could create. As the night deepened, the villagers shared tales of Hadad's origins. They spoke of how he emerged from the mountains, wielding thunder as his weapon and rain as his gift. His fierce battles against chaos were legendary. He fought against the forces that sought to disrupt the balance of nature. Hadad is not just a god of storms, one elder explained, but a protector of order, a champion of life. The villagers listened, their eyes reflecting the flickering flames as they imagined the god battling against the chaos of the universe. In the midst of their reverence, a young farmer named Eli stepped forward, his face etched with worry. "The drought has taken so much from us," he confessed, his voice trembling. "My crops are withering, and my family is suffering. What if Hadad does not hear our prayers?" The villagers leaned in closer, sharing in his fear. They knew too well the challenges of the natural world, the delicate balance that determined their survival. The high priest placed a reassuring hand on Eli's shoulder. "Have faith, my son. Hadad listens to the cries of his people. We must show our devotion and trust that he will respond." As Eli nodded, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. The gathering continued, each villager offering their prayers, united in their desire for Hadad's mercy. As dawn approached, the villagers turned their attention to the stories of Hadad's influence in biblical narratives. They recalled how he was mentioned alongside other storm deities, symbolizing the fierce competition between gods. In the Bible, Hadad is often portrayed as a rival to Yahweh, the high priest explained. But he is also a reminder of the importance of nature in our lives, a force we must respect. The villagers exchanged knowing glances, understanding that their beliefs were interwoven with the larger tapestry of ancient cultures. The tales continued, weaving through comparisons with other storm gods from neighboring cultures. Baal, the Canaanite storm god, is often seen as Hadad's counterpart, one elder noted. Both deities wielded power over the weather, but each had their own unique attributes and followers. The villagers nodded, appreciating the complexity of their beliefs and the shared threads that connected them to other peoples. As the sun began to rise, illuminating the sky with shades of gold, the villagers turned their hearts toward Shamash, the sun god, whose light was essential for life. Shamash's rays poured over the land, bringing warmth and illumination. He was revered not only as a deity of the sun, but also as a symbol of justice and truth. The villagers spoke of his role as the divine judge, shining light upon the dark corners of the world, ensuring that justice was served. In the heart of the village, another gathering took place, this time in honor of Shamash. The high priest welcomed the villagers, his voice carrying the weight of tradition. "O Shamash, we seek your guidance and protection," he began, his eyes reflecting the rising sun. The villagers repeated his words, their voices filled with sincerity. They believed that Shamash's light could dispel darkness, revealing the truth in a world often shrouded in uncertainty. As they shared stories of Shamash's significance, the villagers remembered how he was depicted in ancient texts, often shown with a radiant sunburst around his head. "He is the guardian of justice," one elder explained, "a protector of the oppressed, ensuring that all voices are heard." The villagers nodded, feeling a deep connection to the ideals of fairness and righteousness that Shamash represented. The discussions turned to the impact of Shamash on their laws and society. In ancient Mesopotamia, he was associated with legal codes, another elder added. His light illuminated the path of justice, guiding rulers in their decisions. The villagers recognized the importance of Shamash in their daily lives, understanding that his influence extended beyond the spiritual realm into their governance and interactions with one another. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the villagers offered their prayers to Shamash, asking for guidance in their pursuits of justice and fairness. They called upon him to shine his light upon their lives, helping them navigate the challenges they faced as a community. Each prayer was a testament to their desire for a just world, a place where truth triumphed over deception. In the warmth of the sun's embrace, the villagers felt a sense of unity. They understood that Hadad and Shamash were not just distant deities, they were vital parts of their lives, weaving together the threads of nature and justice. With each passing moment, they felt their connection to the divine strengthen, inspiring them to honor the balance of life and seek fairness in their interactions. As day turned to evening, the villagers reflected on the stories shared, the power of Hadad and Shamash resonating in their hearts. They understood that in the dance of storms and the warmth of the sun, there lay a deeper meaning, a call to respect the natural world and uphold the principles of justice. They would carry these lessons with them, honoring the deities who watched over them, grateful for the gifts of life and light. Under the vast expanse of the night sky, a silver orb hung above, casting a soft glow upon the earth. This was Sin, the moon god, whose presence filled the dark with a comforting light. Sin was revered by many ancient cultures, his attributes whispered in reverence among the faithful. The people looked to him for guidance in the shadows, believing that he held the secrets of the night within his luminous form. Each month, as the moon waxed and waned, the rituals dedicated to him transformed the lives of those who sought his favor. In the heart of a bustling city, the high priest stood atop a stone platform, addressing the gathered crowd. "O Sin, bringer of light and darkness, guide us in our times of uncertainty," he intoned, his voice carrying through the still night air. The villagers lifted their heads toward the moon, their hearts filled with hope. They believed that Sin illuminated their paths, revealing hidden truths and granting wisdom in their decisions. They recited hymns, their voices rising like smoke from incense, weaving a tapestry of devotion that connected them to the divine. Stories of Sin's power were shared by the firelight. He was known as a protector of travelers, a beacon for those lost in the night. The villagers recalled tales of how Sin would watch over them, ensuring safe passage through the darkness. "When the moon is full, he is at his most powerful," an elder recounted. "He sees all and knows all, guiding us away from danger." The listeners nodded, feeling the warmth of belief wrap around them like a comforting blanket. Sin's influence extended beyond the city, reaching into the sacred texts of the people. Biblical references hinted at his existence, woven subtly into the fabric of Scripture. In the ancient narratives, there were echoes of his name, reminders of the moon's importance in the rhythms of life. The high priest explained, even when the names change, the essence of Sin remains. He is the eternal light that watches over us. The villagers listened closely, their hearts swelling with a sense of belonging to something greater. As the night wore on, the gathering shifted to a different tale, the story of Tammuz, the dying and rising god. His myths were steeped in mystery, reflecting the cycle of life and death. Tammuz was a figure of longing, his narrative a poignant reminder of the fragility of existence. The people recounted how he was beloved by the goddess Anath, who descended into the underworld, leaving the earth barren in her absence. When Tammuz died, the land mourned, and the rivers dried, an elder explained. His loss echoed through the hearts of the people. The rituals surrounding Tammuz were a blend of sorrow and hope. The villagers gathered to weep, their tears watering the earth as they lamented the god's departure. But in his death, there is also rebirth, the elder continued. Each year, when the earth warms, Tammuz rises again, bringing life back to the fields. The villagers wiped their eyes, understanding the cycle of loss and renewal, feeling the pulse of life in their own hearts. Biblical references to Tammuz echoed through the community, adding layers to his significance. In the scriptures, he is mentioned as a god whose worship was forbidden, the high priest reminded them. Yet, his essence transcends borders, influencing beliefs beyond our own. The villagers recognized the shared threads of faith, understanding that even in prohibition, the longing for life and resurrection remained a universal truth. As they spoke of Tammuz, the villagers began to feel a deep connection to their own lives. The cycles of nature mirrored their struggles and triumphs, the planting and harvesting, the joys and sorrows. When we honor Tammuz, we acknowledge our own journeys, one villager said softly. We, too, face our own deaths and rebirths in the choices we make. This reflection resonated with the crowd, each individual contemplating their own experiences, feeling the weight of their stories intertwining with the ancient myths. The influence of Tammuz reached far beyond their own culture, echoing in the traditions of later religious beliefs. The villagers spoke of how the stories of death and resurrection had transformed over time, taking on new meanings while retaining their core essence. The themes of sacrifice and renewal are woven into many faiths, one elder noted. They remind us that in our struggles, there is always a chance for new beginnings. As the moon cast its silvery glow over the village, the gathering turned into a celebration of life. The villagers danced, their movements reflecting the ebb and flow of the seasons, the cycles of Tammuz and Sin. They sang praises to both deities, acknowledging the light and darkness that existed within them, recognizing that both were necessary for growth. In that moment, beneath the watchful gaze of Sin, the villagers felt a profound sense of unity. They were bound not only by their shared beliefs, but by their shared humanity, their fears, their hopes, and their dreams. With every story told and every prayer lifted to the moon and the stars, they understood that they were part of a larger tapestry, woven together through time and myth. As the night deepened, the stories of Sin and Tammuz lingered in the air, a reminder that the journey of life is filled with both shadows and light. The villagers returned to their homes, carrying with them the echoes of the past, ready to face whatever came next with courage and grace, honoring the legacies of the deities who had touched their lives. In the heart of the ancient world, a realm existed beneath the earth, cloaked in shadows and secrets. This was the domain of Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld. Her name whispered through the lips of the people, filled with awe and fear. In stories passed down through generations, she was portrayed not only as a ruler of the dead, but also as a figure of immense power and complexity. Her presence was felt in every corner of existence, a reminder of the balance between life and death. Ereshkigal's myths painted her as a goddess who commanded respect. She was the keeper of the dead, ensuring that those who passed from the realm of the living found their rightful place in her kingdom. People believed that her heart was heavy with the weight of souls, and her eyes, pools of sorrow, reflected the loneliness of her eternal duty. She reigns in darkness, a priestess would say, her voice trembling with reverence. But even in darkness, there is purpose. In the stories, there were moments of compassion and fierce protection. Ereshkigal was known to be a guardian of the weak, her fierce love for her subjects transforming her from a figure of dread to one of empathy. When the goddess Anath descended to the underworld, seeking power and dominance, it was Ereshkigal who stood her ground. Their conflict was legendary, a clash of wills that echoed through the ages. Anath thought she could conquer the underworld, a storyteller would explain, but Ereshkigal knew her own strength. She would not be overthrown. The listeners gasped, feeling the tension and the stakes of their epic struggle. Ereshkigal's role as the queen of the underworld has parallels in biblical texts, where darkness and judgment loom large. Though she was not mentioned directly in Scripture, her essence lingered in the shadows. The narratives of judgment, the weighing of souls, and the fears surrounding death drew parallels with the stories of Ereshkigal. Yet, there were contrasts as well. Inanna's rise and fall echoed the struggles of biblical figures who wrestled with their faith and the afterlife. The tale served as a bridge between cultures, connecting the threads of belief and storytelling. As her story unfolded, the people began to see Ereshkigal not just as a distant figure, but as a reflection of their own experiences. Life was often painted with sorrow, the loss of loved ones, the weight of grief, and the longing for those who had departed. Ereshkigal embodied those feelings, her heart resonating with the pain and love that accompanied death. In her, we find our own fears, a wise elder would say, but also our hope for reunion. The connection grew deeper, and the villagers found solace in the idea that Ereshkigal, too, understood their sorrow. In the midst of Ereshkigal's shadowy realm, there existed another powerful figure, Anu, the sky god. As the ruler of the heavens, Anu was revered as the father of the gods, the one who shaped the very fabric of existence. His attributes were those of strength, authority, and creation, a celestial force that governed the stars and the cosmos. The villagers looked up at the sky, their hearts swelling with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Anu watches over us, they believed, guiding the course of our lives from above. Anu's influence reached far and wide, touching the lives of other deities and shaping their stories. He was seen as a figure of inspiration, his essence breathing life into the pantheon of gods. From his throne in the heavens, he commanded respect and loyalty, creating a hierarchy that defined the relationships between the divine. The villagers often spoke of his wisdom, believing that he bestowed gifts upon those who sought his favor. "He is the source of all things," they whispered, their voices filled with reverence. In biblical texts, the concept of a sky god appeared in various forms, often intertwining with the narratives of Yahweh and other deities. Anu's presence can be felt in the way the skies are described, powerful, majestic, and filled with mystery. The heavens were a reflection of divine order, a connection between earth and sky. The villagers recognized the threads of their beliefs woven together, understanding that Anu was part of a larger tapestry of faith that spanned cultures and time. As the stories of Ereshkigal and Anu intertwined, the villagers found themselves at the intersection of life and death, of love and loss, of hope and despair. Ereshkigal, with her shadows, represented the complexities of existence, the pain of parting and the embrace of what lies beyond. Anu, with his celestial light, symbolized the potential for growth and the vastness of creation. Together, they painted a picture of life that was rich and textured, filled with both joy and sorrow. Under the night sky, as the villagers gathered to share their stories, they felt the presence of both deities enveloping them. They sang songs of remembrance for those who had passed, their voices rising like incense toward the heavens. They also celebrated the beauty of life, expressing gratitude for the blessings that Anu had bestowed upon them. The dance of existence unfolded before their eyes, a testament to the delicate balance of their beliefs. In those moments, as the moonlight mingled with the stars, the villagers understood that Ereshkigal and Anu were not just distant figures in myth, but reflections of their own lives. They felt the weight of Ereshkigal's sorrow and the warmth of Anu's light within their hearts. The duality of existence became a source of strength, reminding them that even in darkness, there was hope, and even in hope, there was a recognition of life's fragility. As the stories of the past resonated through the present, the villagers carried the lessons of Ereshkigal and Anu with them, knowing that their narratives would continue to shape their understanding of life and death for generations to come. They were not merely spectators of a grand tale, but active participants in a legacy that intertwined the heavens and the underworld, binding them together in a beautiful, heart-touching dance of existence. In a world where the elements danced with fierce power, there existed a god whose very breath could change the course of nature. This was Enlil, the god of wind, whose presence swept across the land like a fierce storm, bringing both destruction and life. To the people of the ancient Near East, Enlil was more than just a deity, he was a force of nature, embodying the wild, untamed spirit of the skies. His characteristics were as complex as the winds themselves, sometimes gentle, like a soft breeze that whispered secrets, and other times fierce, roaring like a tempest that could topple mountains and shake the earth. Legend spoke of Enlil's might. He was known to be a master of creation, shaping the world with his powerful hands. He is the one who separates the heavens from the earth, the elders would say, their voices filled with reverence. His will is felt in every gust of wind, every rustle of leaves. The people would look up at the sky, feeling a mix of awe and fear, knowing that Enlil's mood could shift in an instant. It was said that when he was pleased, the crops flourished, and the rains fell gently. But when he was angered, storms would rage, and calamity would strike. The stories of Enlil were woven into the fabric of their lives. When the floods came, they remembered the tales of how Enlil had once unleashed the waters upon the earth, a testament to his power and his authority. Biblical references echoed these tales, drawing connections between Enlil's might and the divine will that shaped the world. The narratives of storms and floods resonated with the fears and hopes of the people, intertwining their lives with the mythos of their gods. Yet, in the depths of their hearts, they also understood that Enlil was a protector, a guardian of order in the chaos of nature. He was the one who regulated the seasons, ensuring that life would continue to thrive. In moments of calm, when the wind whispered through the trees, the villagers would gather to express their gratitude to Enlil. "We honor you," they would chant, their voices rising like the gentle breeze. "You are the breath of life." But alongside Enlil, another god walked among them, Enki, the god of wisdom. Unlike Enlil's tempestuous nature, Enki was often depicted as a figure of serenity and intelligence. He was the embodiment of knowledge, a creator who understood the delicate balance of life. His attributes were those of compassion and creativity, a wise god who guided humanity with a gentle hand. Enki knows the secrets of the earth, the people would say, their eyes shining with hope. He teaches us how to thrive. Enki's role was pivotal in the myths that defined the ancient Near Eastern religions. He was a friend to humanity, often intervening when they found themselves in peril. In stories passed down through generations, he was known to craft the first humans from clay, breathing life into them with his divine wisdom. He molded us with love, the villagers would tell their children, giving us the gift of life and knowledge. Enki was seen as a benevolent figure, one who cared for the welfare of the people, guiding them toward prosperity and understanding. In biblical texts, Enki's influence manifested in the ideals of wisdom and knowledge. His attributes echoed through the narratives, emphasizing the importance of understanding and discernment. The ancient people recognized that wisdom was a gift, a treasure that could elevate their lives and guide their decisions. Enki became a symbol of hope, representing the potential for growth and enlightenment. The cultural significance of Enki resonated deeply within the hearts of the people. His stories inspired them to seek knowledge, to cultivate their minds, and to foster a spirit of inquiry. They revered him not just as a god but as a mentor, a guiding light in the darkness of uncertainty. "Wisdom is our greatest ally," they would chant, invoking Enki's name, believing that with his guidance, they could navigate the complexities of life. As Enlil and Enki's narratives intertwined, the villagers began to understand the delicate balance between their influences. Enlil's wild winds could bring chaos, but Enki's wisdom could help them endure and thrive amidst the storms. Together, they represented the dualities of existence, power and knowledge, chaos and order, destruction and creation. The villagers found solace in this understanding, recognizing that both gods were essential to their lives. On quiet nights, when the winds whispered and the stars shone brightly, the villagers would gather around the fire, sharing stories of Enlil and Enki. They spoke of the storms that had tested their resolve and the wisdom that had guided them through adversity. The flames danced in the darkness, mirroring the fierce power of Enlil and the gentle light of Enki. Their hearts swelled with emotion as they felt the presence of the gods enveloping them. Through laughter and tears, they learned to honor both gods, knowing that life was a tapestry woven with joy and sorrow, wisdom and strength. The tales of Enlil and Enki became their legacy, a source of inspiration that transcended generations. They understood that they were not just subjects of the gods, but active participants in a divine narrative that shaped their world. In the stillness of the night, they closed their eyes and felt the winds brush against their skin, the gentle reminder of Enlil's presence. They felt the warmth of knowledge in their hearts, a spark ignited by Enki's wisdom. In that moment, they were connected to something greater than themselves, a reminder of the intricate dance of existence that continued to unfold around them. In the heart of ancient civilizations, where mountains touched the sky and rivers wound like serpents through the land, there existed a place where the gods convened. This sacred gathering, known as the Divine Council, was a powerful assembly where deities from different realms came together to discuss the fate of the world and the lives of mortals. The air crackled with energy, and the very ground trembled with the weight of their decisions. Each god brought their unique essence to the table, a symphony of voices echoing across the heavens as they shaped the destinies of humankind. At the center of this divine assembly sat a figure of great authority, often seen as the supreme god, whose presence commanded respect and awe. The council was not merely a meeting of powerful beings, it was a reflection of the intricate relationships between the gods, a tapestry woven from their characteristics, conflicts, and collaborations. As the gods debated and discussed, their voices reverberated through the air, filling the hearts of those who listened with a mixture of fear and hope. Biblical references illuminate this divine council, hinting at moments when the earthly and the divine intersected. In one of the most profound accounts, the Lord asks, "Whom shall I send?" The answer comes from the heavens, revealing the existence of celestial beings who assist in divine governance. This glimpse into the divine assembly reminds humanity that they are not alone. A council of gods watches over them, deliberating the course of their lives. Each decision made by the assembly carried immense weight, shaping the world in ways that echoed through the ages. The significance of the divine council extends beyond the pages of Scripture. In various ancient mythologies, similar assemblies existed, showcasing a universal belief in the power of collective decision-making among the gods. Whether it was the Greek Pantheon gathered on Mount Olympus or the Norse gods meeting in Asgard, these councils represented a shared understanding that the fates of mortals were intertwined with the will of the divine. The gods, with their strengths and weaknesses, formed a community, each contributing to the larger narrative of existence. As the divine council convened, the question of syncretism loomed large. Throughout history, cultures and religions have blended, creating a rich tapestry of beliefs that reflect the evolving nature of spirituality. This blending of traditions allowed for the development of biblical mythology, where elements from various faiths intermingled, enriching the understanding of the divine. In ancient Israel, syncretism was evident as neighboring cultures influenced each other. The gods of Canaanite mythology found their way into the hearts of the Israelites, weaving their stories into the fabric of their own beliefs. This blending was not merely a matter of imitation, it was a dynamic process that shaped the understanding of God and the divine. The Israelites began to see aspects of their God reflected in the attributes of other deities, creating a multifaceted view of the divine. The stories of gods and goddesses were not static, they evolved as cultures interacted and adapted. The Israelites took inspiration from the pantheon of their neighbors while simultaneously maintaining their distinct identity. The echoes of the divine assembly resonated through these interactions, reminding the people of the complexity of their beliefs. Each god represented a facet of life, from love and war to wisdom and fertility, and in their intermingling, they found a deeper understanding of existence. The divine assembly and the practice of syncretism highlight the fluidity of religious beliefs. As cultures merged and mingled, they carried with them the stories and traditions of their gods. This fluidity allowed for growth, adaptation, and a greater appreciation of the divine's many forms. The legacy of the oldest gods continued to evolve, shaping the very foundation of faith for generations to come. Amidst the chaos of changing beliefs, one thing remained constant: the quest for connection with the divine. The people sought meaning and understanding in their lives, longing for a relationship with the gods who watched over them. They gathered in temples, offered sacrifices, and shared stories that spoke of love, loss, and the search for purpose. The Council of Gods became a source of comfort, a reminder that even in uncertainty, there was a divine presence guiding them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the land, the villagers would gather around flickering fires, sharing tales of the gods and their assembly. They would speak of the moments when the divine council intervened in their lives, answering prayers and granting blessings. The stories of the oldest gods became part of their legacy, a way to connect with the past while forging a path toward the future. In these moments, the people felt the weight of their history and the promise of their beliefs. They understood that the divine assembly was not just a gathering of powerful beings, but a testament to the interconnectedness of all things. The gods were woven into the fabric of their lives, influencing their choices and shaping their destinies. As they told these stories, they honored the legacy of the oldest gods, a legacy that would continue to resonate through time, leaving an indelible mark on modern religion and culture. With each passing generation, the whispers of the divine council grew fainter, but their influence remained. The lessons learned from the assembly of gods, the blending of traditions, and the search for meaning continued to shape the spiritual landscape of humanity. The legacy of the oldest gods lived on, a testament to the enduring quest for connection, understanding, and the belief that the divine is ever present in the lives of those who seek it.